Hi guys! I'm so glad you're here today on our first day together for our Advent book study. And surprise, it's a video. And I'm not sure if you're surprised, but I certainly was whenever I felt like God put it on my heart to make this series into a video series instead of just a plain old blog series. So, I'm not super high tech. I'm sure this should be a Periscope situation so we could talk back and forth, live chatting, but I don't know how to do all that. So you're just going to have to bear with me as I learn all the technical ins and outs of stuff like that. But for now, I felt like a video was a little more personal way for us to be together for this study. And I'm going to do the craft here on the video and just talk to you guys as I do the craft about my thoughts from this week's readings. And I'm hoping that at the end you will, in the comments, just have a conversation with me. I want to hear about what you thought, what you like, what you don't like, different ways the study is moving you in your walk through Advent, any points that I maybe missed, and I will, I'm just giving you my perspective. So it's nothing official. It's just completely how this book is speaking to me. And I think that's most of all what I want to share with you is how this even came about, how this does speak to me. I was really feeling like this Christmas needed to be different. Every year when the Christmas season rolls around, I struggle with something. It seems like every year it's something different, and I get a little better and better every year, but it's always, shopping or just so many places to be, and the schedule gets busy, or there's family drama and trying to coordinate schedules there, and it's all these little things that steal joy and meaning from this time of year that's supposed to be the most beautiful and celebratory time of the year, and it turns out frustrating for me sometimes, and I'm tired of it. So I really wanted to start with an Advent reading this year for myself, and I started looking into books and deciding what I was going to do, and this book kept coming back and back to me. So I felt like that's the one I was supposed to read, and then I just felt like maybe it was something I should share with you guys. It wasn't my original intent. It was something I was just going to do for myself. But as I started to read through Anne's book and look at it, when I was choosing which book I was going to do, I started to just visually see projects and things, and that's what I'm going to share with you. Anne is so amazing. She's an amazing writer. She is so uniquely gifted in her writing, in her tone, and her style. She is a lot more formal than I am. She writes and paints beautiful words with her fingertips on a keyboard. And I will be perfectly honest that intimidated me to do a book study with you guys over such a beautiful piece of writing, because I feel like my gifts are very different than hers and our styles are very different, and I didn't know what that would look like melted together. So I will fully admit I still don't all the way know what it's going to look like. I hope that it speaks to you in some way. I know that her book will. My goal is just to really accentuate this book and take it one step further. What Anne does is goes obviously through the lineage of Christ, and the main tagline almost I feel like the book says is that to get to the Christmas tree and truly understand the Christmas tree, you have to understand Christ's tree first. And I think that's so true, and she does such a beautiful way of laying that out for us through this book. So that was what really spoke to me first about the book, was the history that we're going to go through to have a greater appreciation for what Christmas really is, and how big of a miracle it is, and how long that miracle's been planned, and how perfectly messy and crazy it is, and it was all intentionally done. So I love that. My project is going to just be a tag on to that. Anne does have in her book, she talks about the Jesse tree that her and her family do at their house for Christmas, and it's a really beautiful thing. There's some YouTube videos that Anne does, if you wanted to look those up, where you could see a little more about that. And if you want to do the Jesse tree, then that is perfectly fine if you just want to read along with us, or if you have something completely different, or you want to try to do the projects that I'm going to present through the next couple weeks. Whatever works for you is what you need to do. So there are printable ornaments, on Anne's website that go along with this book. There's a code in the book that you can download those printable ornaments, and that might be what you want to do, just to go through each day with a different ornament that speaks to the talk for that day. So there's a lot of different options with this book, and There is no way I can top anything or add anything to the beautiful insight and knowledge that Anne carries in this book, but I just want to accentuate it, like I said. So what I'm going to do is walk you through this craft that I have come up with that really spoke to me, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the chapters as we go, and like I said, at the end I hope you'll chime in and let me know what you think. So like I said, that whole tree concept of going through Christ's tree to understand the Christmas tree really spoke to me in the introduction. And then moving into the first chapter, the first verse that Anne says in her book is from Isaiah. And she says, "Out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot. Yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root." So there's a lot of tree symbolism, and there's some more that goes on. And that is what spoke to me loud and clear. And the very first visual I had when I read these words was this tree that I'm going to do for you today. And it's just called the twig tree. I don't know what else to call it, but it is a very simple project. It's stuff that you should have around your house or is very inexpensive and easy to get. So all my projects this season will be that way because I want you to be able to do them. The way that I see things, the way that God and I talk is through stuff. And that seems worldly, and so I struggle with that. And once I finally put Him into worldly things, it released that a little bit for me. And once I opened my life a little more to God, I felt like He did start showing Himself to me through everything and through my gifts specifically. So my gifts lay more in splintered wood and rusty metal and hunks of junk and transforming things or painting things. I am not a wordsmith, I'm not a poet. That is not where my gift lies, but when I do these projects and I work on them, they mean something to me, and these are the times that God and I talk, and I feel like He reveals Himself to me through projects. And so what I'm hoping is that maybe when I show you my thought process and how I go through things, that might seep into your life a little bit if you're not already like me. That I think what happens to me, what I do, it can happen to anybody, and anybody can do it. Anybody can have that relationship with God in a way that's meaningful through what they do. So I'm hoping that will open your eyes a little bit more to just recognizing Him in the things you do every day. So I'm just going to start with this tree. You're going to find on the blog post there's going to be a free printable, and it's just a tree on a piece of paper, 8.5. So you're just going to print this on an 8.5 by 11 just printer paper. Make sure that you print it in portrait, not landscape, because it'll come out the wrong size. So I just printed this off on my computer and then cut it out. And then what I'm going to do is take a cereal box, because we have so many cereal boxes floating around our house. This is my go-to for a workspace mat, or if I need to cut something out or paint something. I mean, I'm always using cereal boxes. So just find a little piece of cardboard. It can be heavier than this if you have a box or something lying around. But I just traced this onto my cereal box, and I'm going to cut it out right now. And this is just going to be the form for our twig tree that you're going to see here. So it does not have to be perfect. I think what you're going to find is with most of my projects, I am not detail oriented, so none of my projects have a whole lot of perfectionism going on. I have about the patience of a 3-year-old, and I don't do multi-day projects well. So my mom is very detail oriented. She can do handwork, she can do stuff that lasts, projects that last over the course of weeks and months, and I lose interest. So this just needs to be roughly cut out because it's going to just sort of be a guide for us. And once you get it cut out, we'll just get rid of all this trash. The next thing I have is some hymnal pages. So I found an old hymnal for $1, I don't know, 50 cents at a thrift store, and it was in bad condition. And so I thought it would be perfect to use for different projects, and I use it all the time, but it was in bad condition, so nobody be mad at me for tearing up a hymnal. I didn't, it was rough already to start with. But what I like to do is just use these as backdrop pieces and different things. On this tree, you're not going to see the hymnal too terribly much, so I wouldn't use your favorite hymnal pages for this part of the project. So we're just gonna put the Mod Podge or decoupage, this is what this is, and I just put it straight on this little tree. You're just going to spread it, and you want to get it all the way to the edges. Okay, so that's the key. You do want to make sure that you get your glue paste spread to the edges. And if you don't have Mod Podge, you probably could just use glue. This is going to be, just like I said, a backdrop, so it's not going to be super important, but I think that you would probably need Mod Podge for later on in the project, so you might want to go ahead and just invest in that. So now that I have it covered, I'm just going to do my best to use this size tree on a hymnal page would be probably about 2 pages. And what I will tell you is if you don't have a hymnal, I love the black and white feel of the pages. And that's pretty much why I picked the hymnal pages, just because I like the coloring. You could use newspaper. You could make a Xerox copy of your own hymnal if you don't want to tear one up. Actually, I think I'm going to just use 1 page. So you could definitely do that. Online, there's tons of free music sheets. If you go to my Pinterest boards, I have a free printable Pinterest board, and I know for a fact that there's Christmas music on those Pinterest boards, so you could print some of that and use it. If you overlap the sheets, I just want you to make sure that you get them laid down all the way so that we don't have sticky edges. I don't like edges that stick up. Okay, so this tree form is covered, and you can see on the back, you can just still see our little, and I always glue to the brown side so you don't see through it. So then what you're going to do is you're going to rip backwards for this on this tree form. You're just going to pull against the tree form. And it's going to give you kind of a rugged cut edge that just outlines your tree form without having to use scissors and have that nice sharp edge that a scissor will give you. This is a little more rustic, which is just what I prefer. And you'll see that it comes off really easily. So we're doing this first just to kind of let that Mod Podge that's underneath get completely dry. So when we moved into the second day of reading, I have my book here with my notes, I'm just going to look, is where we get into the creation story. And I love the creation story. And so another part of the reason that this picture came to mind for me was obviously a tree, and the whole symbolism of the Christmas tree and the Christ tree. But it also has to do with our family tree. And creation is the start of our family tree. So that was another big thing that played into this project for me. That God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. And that is when Christ just breathed life into us. And even in that moment, we were planned and we were formed in His image. And I think that is the most beautiful thing, is the hardest thing to wrap your mind around, to know that we've been thought of. And I think Anne has such a beautiful way of explaining how this Christmas story is really this story of this moment and this thing that's just been coming for us individually, for you and for me, through all of these years, like just coming straight for us since the beginning, since God breathed life into this world. And so I think family trees, people get caught up on them. Gosh, we get so caught up on family trees and what ours looks like and what it doesn't look like. And there's so much freedom in the fact that clearly through the New Testament of the Bible, we are told that we are adopted children of Christ, which puts us in His family tree. And so I think that's such freedom to let go of whatever your family tree does or doesn't look like. And I think at the holidays, we are so heightened by what our family tree looks like, because it's a time when you're either with family that you're not normally with, or you're missing family that you can't see, or maybe you're the flip side, you're missing family that's not present, that isn't a part of your life and you wish they were. or it just stirs up so much family. So, just a standard canvas that I bought, and you can buy them anywhere. I'm painting it completely black. Now I've done this background 2 different ways, so I'm going to show you both ways. I also think this is the point of the project, that you can just make this your own. You can do whatever you want to make this tree fit your decor, fit your holiday decor, fit your house style, your personal style. This is just black acrylic craft paint that you can get at any craft store when you get a canvas. So I'm decided that for this tree that I'm doing right now, I am going to paint the entire background black. And I just want it to be really subtle. It might need 2 coats, it might not. I'm not really too terribly worried about it. And I'm going to do that first so that I can set it over here and it'll just dry. What I did for the other tree that I was going to show you guys is I took some more of these hymnal pages that I had and I painted just the edges of this frame black, and then I just Mod Podged hymnal pages as a background onto this canvas. So you could do that. I love that. I love the black and white. That makes me happy. But another way that you could change this up is to just paint this a different color, whatever your color scheme is for Christmas. If it's teal and brown or red or green or whatever it is that speaks to your taste. But also I think what would be really beautiful is to do it on a piece of wood, a piece of metal, just anything that speaks to you, anything that serves as a canvas of sorts. These canvases are 9 by 12, so they fit perfectly that 8.5 by 11 tree that we're printing off of. So I would keep that scale in mind when you're picking a background. But with having this as our template, it's mobile. You can put it on whatever you want to. So that is beautiful. That makes you be able to change this whole concept up however you see fit. So we've painted our background, and now we're going to move on to our tree. So as we move into the tree, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3rd day that we read in our book. And I really love the parts of stories that people speak to people, and how Anne was spoken to the most, I think, by the "where are you" aspect of Adam and Eve in the garden when they have the fall. And I really love the fact that we're back to this tree. Back to the tree, and Anne says that we find ourselves lost at one tree and found at another. And by that she means we find ourselves lost, separated from God through sin, when Adam and Eve take the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then we find ourselves again in our salvation at the tree of the cross. And so it's that beautiful story that ebbs and flows in between those 2 moments in time that lead us to the true miracle that comes at Easter, Christ's resurrection. But it's just one more of the symbolisms of this tree and this wood, and where are you? You know, God calling out to ask us where you are. And I think that's just such a great thing for us to think about this season, is where are we? You know, are we somewhere that separates us from God, where we're ashamed to be with God? And there's nothing that can separate us from His love. And there's nothing that we could do, or nothing we could have done, that when He asks that question, He doesn't want to find us. He's not asking because He's just curious. He wants to know where we are because He wants us to be with Him. He wants that to be the answer to where are you? We're with you. That's what He wants us to say. And so I love that. But it's once again another reference to this tree. And they are lost now because of the sin that came from eating from a tree that they were told not to. So the next part of this project is where the twigs come in. So I want you to just spend some time, maybe this weekend or over the next week or so, just in your yard, or maybe go on a walk, or go to a park, or go somewhere just to be outside and going back into that creation mode. And just, it's a good time for me. I love to do projects that involve outdoor things, because it's a time that is just quiet, and you can really appreciate the beauty that God surrounds us with. No matter what's going on in your life, I don't care. It's beautiful outside. It always is. Cold or hot, there's always something beautiful. So just go walk around and find some twigs. And by twigs, I really do mean just thin, little pieces of wood. They do not need to be perfect. Of course, if they're straight, it helps with this project, but there is no perfect straight piece of wood, which is what is my favorite part about this tree. I want you to just really think of these little pieces of wood as branches of your family tree, and none of us have a perfect family tree, most of all Christ. We are going to lay out the imperfections in his family tree throughout this book, and that is once again the freedom that his story gives our lives. So, you know, you have a crazy uncle, you have a prodigal son, you have all of these different pieces of your tree, and they're bent and they're bruised and they're broken and they're scraped, and they are beautiful. They're really beautiful when they come together. And so none of us have a tree that's perfect. Maybe yours doesn't look the way that it should, but the truth is that Jesus' tree is our tree. So you may love your earthly tree, a family tree, or you may not, but regardless, you have this beautiful tree, family tree that we're going to study throughout Advent. And so I'm going to bring the camera a little closer so you can see the details of what I'm doing with this twig situation. But that is what my hope is that you'll just really think about your family, good and bad, as you compose your twig tree. Okay, so we're back with a close-up of our tree. I don't know if you can really see, like just little parts that were not perfectly covered. You can just rip little pieces of paper just to get you a loose outline of this tree, okay? So that's going to be, like I said, our format for our twig tree. So what we're going to start doing is just really like working a puzzle. You're going to find, I used the thicker twigs that I had. We're just going to lay them. And you do want to just kind of start lined up across the bottom here as much as you can. But let it go off the top. Just let it be a mess. This is not perfection. So you might want to lay out your first few branches just to get started for an outline of sorts. Make sure you have plenty of room. Okay, so then once you just start that loose outline, you're going to use your hot glue gun. You're just going to kind of lightly glue because you don't want it to be a big gobble gobble mess. You want to just get them to stick. So I'm going to stick this one right here. You're just going to work a little twig puzzle of sorts. So, like I said, let them stick off, let them stick out, just let them, sometimes you'll have to hold some down harder than others, but they'll dry. You could probably use other kinds of glue if you were more patient and wanted to let it dry, like anything that dries clear. Elmer's glue, even school glue if you wanted to. I'm just not that patient, so I'm using hot glue. So you're going to do this kind of few up at the middle of the main branch. And then what we're going to do is just take these different ones, some of them are bent, and just sort of lightly lay them. Okay, and then you can break them so that you can use these longer ones more than once. Just put them up and around and just glue them as you go. You're just going to layer them all over. I like to wind some underneath the others, just carrying out sort of this motion in the tree. Okay, so you're going to make motion and movement with the way that your branches are glued down. Just glue as you go. And you're going to just do it till you like it, until you have enough. Maybe you like a sparse tree, maybe you like it really full. Just whatever works for you is perfect because this is your project. And it's supposed to be a reflection of how you see things. I want to talk about the next day, which is day 4. And this is where we go to the ark with Noah. And I think what was my favorite part and really just spoke to me was where Anne points out that in Genesis 6:6, his heart was filled with pain. And I think that so many people get it wrong, that there's all this evil in the world and God must not care about us, or we wouldn't have evil, we wouldn't have bad. And that just really points to the truth of the matter, is that he does care, and he hurts worse than we do at the pain in our lives. And it's the reason we need a Savior. And that he doesn't promise that life is going to be easy or perfect, but he promises that those who love him will have their reward in heaven, where there is no pain, and there is no crying, and there is no suffering. And that our job while we're here is to spread that message so that we can have all of our family, all of our friends, we can have strangers come to know that truth and be saved, because they're not going to be saved any other way but through Jesus. And the message can only get out if we share it. So this is kind of basically what you're going to do. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but like you're just going to even find yourself layering them across. You'll just have to see. I hope y'all can see what I'm doing. And just gluing as you go. So it's going to end up kind of looking like this. I think this will give you a little, hot glue gun, a little more detail. You can see how they're just sort of slightly piled on each other in mismatched ways, but overall it's a tree shape. So that is going to be our twig tree. So then what we're going to do with this, and let me just show you how I got to that final product. After I glued to my liking all the little twigs that I had, I got my scissors out, and you just snip to the form, okay? Like, just go ahead and cut off these branches at the edge of the form. And if they're dry and brittle, you can probably break them off, or you can cut them off, whatever you want. I just want it to make it more precise, and some of them aren't going to break as easy. But that shapes it up to make your tree form. And then sometimes you'll have that stringy glue. You're just going to have to get rid of it. So once we have our tree all dolled up, we're going to go back to our canvas, okay? So you would have already put all of your hymnal sheets on there before if you want it to look like the other one, or if you want it to just be plain and simple like this one. We're just going to hot glue this straight onto our canvas or our piece of wood or whatever it is that you choose to use as a background. And that is going to be the end of your twig tree. So it's a pretty easy project. I think you could do it with your kids. I think you could change it up a million different ways if you wanted to. I think you could embellish this tree with some garland, or maybe you would put a star, or you could put some glitter on it. One other thing that I think would be really beautiful is to do all of this on a plain canvas, on a plain tree form, or do the tree straight onto the canvas, and then once everything is glued together is to just spray paint the whole thing, like maybe white. And I think that that would be a really beautiful, very simple variation on this project. So there is your tree, and I'm going to close this in just 1 second. Alright guys, well I hope that you enjoyed the twig tree project that went along with our readings this week. I'm just going to finish up kind of giving some thoughts about what I liked on the day 5 reading, and just close this and get us ready for next week. But you can see I just have my little tree sitting here, and when I see it, I just feel like this story just speaks to me through this tree, and I hope it does the same for you. If you guys decide to make the tree, please put it on Facebook or Instagram, or email it to me, a picture, something so I can see, or tag me, something just to let me know it's there, because I would love to see your take on the tree and how it comes out for you, because we're all different. They're all gonna look different. They're gonna all be beautiful. So I can't wait to see those. But the last day, December 5th, was talking about living by faith. And I love this story. It talks about Abraham, and God calls him to leave his comfort zone and to leave his homeland. And he promises, I will bless you. He just says, I will bless you, and I will make you into a great nation. And sorry, I have my little helper here. And one of the things that really spoke to me the most about what Anne wrote in the book for this day was, you will be experienced as a blessing to the extent you have first experienced yourself as blessed. You must feel the fullness of your own pitcher before you trust the pouring out of yourself. So I sent you guys a free printable this week that I hope speaks to that exact phrase in today's reading. And I think that just choosing to do a study on Advent is the first step to filling up your pitcher, so that you can go out and fill others, and that is what is living a blessed life. And when God blesses us, we're called to pour it out and bless other people. But it is hard to go and do that if you're not recognizing the blessings in your life and you're not filling yourself with God's Word and praying and spending time with Him. You can't go out for Him unless you're with Him already. So I think that things like this, I know a lot of my projects you're going to find, not just for this series, but in general, have speak to me in some way, because that's when God and I talk when I'm working on something. So a lot of my stuff and the stuff in my house has meaning, and it may just be meaning to me. Nobody else may even know. And I think that there is ways to fill your home and your life and things around you with God and with meaning and in conversations, and things like a twig tree can help you memorize scripture and help you know Christ's story. And so I hope that this series will help you see that just you don't have to have scripture posted all over your wall or be God written everywhere in your home for Him to be everywhere in your home, through your decorations and through everything. So it doesn't have to be over the top. So most of the time my stuff just speaks to me in really small ways, and sometimes my family knows the story behind things. Sometimes all my friends know the story behind things. Sometimes there's another behind. Sometimes they don't. So anyway, this is my little helper. She's not so little. So we're finishing up this last week, and as we move into the next 5 days, you'll have 5 readings over the next week to get through, and they're all short, so it shouldn't take you too long. But we're going to move into a time of promises. We're going to move into a time of God showing His provision, showing that His timing is perfect, where He comes and He rescues, and just where He takes what is bad and turns it for good. And I think He does that continually. And when we look at the world around us that's happening right now, it's important to remember that everything has a purpose, that He will turn evil to our benefit. So just remember that. I'm praying for you guys this week, so please let me know what you thought about the book, about the study, about the project. I can't wait to hear from you, and I can't wait to see your projects. Y'all have a blessed week. Thanks for spending time with me.